I'm your host, Carolyn Solo, LCSW, EMDR therapist, and mom of 3 daughters. Thank you for joining me. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 63 of the Future Template Parent Podcast. I'm Dr. Carolyn Solo, PhD, LCSW, EMDR consultant, and mom of 3 daughters. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode all about treatment planning and EMDR intensives. Make sure to listen if you haven't already. Today's episode is, I'd like to think of it as sort of a behind the scenes look at a $5,000 EMDR intensive, from getting referrals to booking it to the intensive itself. I think most of you know that is the fee that I charge for intensives, $5,000 for 15 hours. So a little behind the scenes, and let's go. So let's start with how to actually book a $5,000 intensive, right? So no surprise, it comes down to marketing, marketing, marketing. There is no magic in it. It's often boots to the ground or virtual boots on the ground or on the virtual ground and actually talking to people. And it's hard work, okay? Getting people to pay $5,000 for an intensive, I've said this before, I will continue saying it. It's not just slapping it up on your website and sitting back and waiting, okay? That might get you a person or two here or there, but that's usually not enough to get a steady stream of referrals to have an intensive space practice. Okay. So yeah, you got to talk to people. And I know how many of us hate doing that. They just want the referrals to come to us. But hey, look, if you were an insurance-based provider and you just had your profile on Psychology Today, that's probably enough to get you full. But first of all, as we know, intensives are not something that insurance is usually going to cover. Maybe they'll cover the first hour or reimburse them for the first hour. And two, you're just going to have to get out there and market because it's a high value service. Okay. Or sorry, a high ticket service. So when I think about how I got my first few intensives, I'm thinking about the first 3 right now. So one was from a psychiatrist that I had developed a relationship with and who I had told that I was offering intensives. And because this person already knew me and trusted me and had seen the quality of my work, they were like, oh, what an even better option. And also the psychiatrist is an out-of-network psychiatrist, so they work with people who can pay out of pocket or, can figure out how to manage that. So they were in the, these people, the psychiatrist clients were already, in the frame of mind of recognizing the value and the cost of high quality mental health services, right? So that was one. One was from a colleague who I communicated with extensively, another EMDR intensive therapist, and I built a relationship with her. We had several chats. We were in a consultation group together, and I think I did an hour of consultation with her and I paid her for it. So I had invested financially a little bit in her. And so when she had an intensive come to her that she didn't think was a good fit, she referred them to me. That's what happens. And one was a client who came to me initially looking for hourly, and she heard about me from her gynecologist because I have developed relationships with, maternal mental health providers because I work a lot with that population. And so she first came to me thinking hourly therapy was the thing. And then I was able, in the consult to kind of suss out how an intensive could be of use to her. And she was already, feeling like I was the person she wanted to work with because she'd had this referral. And so that made it even easier to kind of make the case for an intensive, right? And I will say that all of these people had checked out my website as well, right? Or some of them my Instagram account, but all of them had seen my website. And so that's important, right? You're not just, your website matters, right? Yes, certainly there'll be times where, an in-person referral is sufficient, great. And that's amazing. And often people check you out in more than vet you in more than one way, right? So it's important to have more than one way for people to vet you, right? Easy ways to find you, easy ways to learn more about your practice. So how did I create those relationships that I mentioned, like the gynecologist and the psychiatrist, and the other therapist? Well, I sort of said, but it was not just a single email or a single chat. It was repeated contacts over, several months. And
my being very intentional about creating those relationships. For example, the other EMDR intensive therapist, there a lot of, if you don't know this already, a lot of areas have Facebook groups for EMDR EMDR therapists. Mine was the Greater Philadelphia one. And so I connected with this person through there because the person who organized our local group also organized a free consultation group every month. So that was how I connected with this person. The psychiatrist, like I said, was someone who had been the psychiatrist of a client of mine several months prior. And I had gotten a release to talk to this person, et cetera, right? Oh my gosh, those psychiatrists and psychiatric nurse practitioner referrals, they are gold. Those relationships, cultivate them. They will pay you back multiple times over. And the gynecologist, I think I had reached out to them and done, oh yeah, that's right. I had done a Zoom talk for their staff meeting about EMDR. That's it. And I had reached out to them. It actually was my own OBGYN provider for my children, or my last two, my first one, no, but anyway, it doesn't matter. I had heard a more traditional practice, but this was a midwifery practice and we gave birth in why can't I think of the name? Not in a hospital. Can't think of it right now. But you know what I mean. And so they already knew me I actually birthed there twice. Birth center, that's what it's called. And then I had sort of reached out to them with that initial connection and sort of followed up and said, oh, hey, this is something that I am doing that might be of interest to your staff, etc. So those are just some ways that I've connected with people in the past. I know this kind of in-person connection can feel scary because there's a possibility of rejection or just of feeling like unseen or not acknowledged. You can be afraid about screwing up the conversation, but it works. And if people know you and have some connection to you, that's going to, rank higher than almost anything else. And cultivating a few of these relationships over time will continue to pay dividends, like over and over again. And the more, clients of this one psychiatrist that you work with, the more they're going to refer to you. So it's crucial, I think, for building a practice of clients who are willing to pay a high fee, is to have these kinds of relations. Like, honestly, you should have one or two psychiatrists or psychiatric nurse practitioners that you talk to, maybe, once a month or once every couple months. You should be top of mind for them. And I will say, I know this is hard for people. So in both my group programs and in my one-to-one coaching, I will kindly yet firmly hold your feet to the fire to get you to make those connections. Okay. In my group program that's enrolling right now, part of the way we do that is that, I require you to set goals every week for the kinds of connections you're going to make, sort of a 3 people a week schedule. I'm going to talk to this person and this person. I'm going to reach out to this person, this person, and this person. I'm going to follow up with this person and this person. And everyone in the group is going to be, keeping each other accountable as well as me. This is such an important strategy. Okay. These these personal referrals. This is a lot of money. Okay. $5,000 is a lot of money. People have to trust that it's worth it. Would you pay $5,000 for therapy with the person you didn't know if you didn't have a sense of, the value? No, it feels bigger than committing to weekly therapy, right? People are coming to you because they have a significant issue that is causing major distress and they need relief fast. Okay. You need to be able to make it clear that this is something you can do and have other people kind of vetting you, social proof, whatever you want to call it. You also, of course, need to be using visibility strategies, right? You need to be findable. Excuse me, I'm drinking La Croix. So you need to be findable, right? There are many ways to get your name out there besides in-person networking, although I do believe that's probably the quickest and most effective strategy to get traction quickly. But I think some of the other visibility strategies are not necessarily the thing by themselves that will make a client immediately click book, right? It might not, if they come to your website out of nowhere and they see that you offer intensives, that alone might not be enough for them to click, okay, consult call.
It may be, but not always. But a personal referral often goes really nicely with, a website and Instagram or Facebook or whatever other web presence you have, blog posts, YouTube, whatever. So it's great to have both the web presence, the internet presence, and like the referral network, right? All of these are ways to find you and to vet you. And we live in the internet age, right? You know that you always will look for a business's like internet footprint, right? When you're investigating them, right? Sometimes a personal referral can circumvent that, but it also is something that kind of scaffolds the personal referral as well. Hey, think about it, right? Like if a psychiatrist is like, well, there's this person who does intensives and there's this person. If you're the one who has a stronger web presence, you're probably going to win out there. Yeah. So anyway, once the person gets to you, it's that first consult call that seals the deal, right? If they have heard good things about you, that's an easier sell. But I've talked about this initial consult call in like great detail in other episodes. Particularly check out episode 57 and episode 25. But in general, it's all about confidence in your offer and the price. It's about making your expertise and competence very clear. It's about staying grounded when you state the price, and maybe you see their reaction and you just center yourself and stay grounded in it. Feel confident in it. It's about getting a sense of the client's presenting problem right away. And, in my group, we talk a lot about how to do that and making an effective pitch for why an intensive is the right approach for them. Okay. But not overall, most importantly, it's about confidence. You have to be confident in what you're offering on that call. Okay. So that's just a little bit about how to get the person in the door and book and commit to it, right? The next part of a 5K intensive is, for me, is my 90-minute intake and the workbook. I talked in the treatment planning episode last week about the 90-minute intake. I've talked about it in other episodes, but some of the things that I think are really important in terms of creating that 5K experience: get releases to talk to other providers during that time, especially therapists and psychiatrists. Not only is this excellent quality of care and will help your work with the client, but it's also an amazing source for future referrals, and it makes the client feel very well cared for, which you should. We all care about offering that in our therapy practice, but you absolutely need to be offering that in a high ticket experience, right? And then it's an amazing source for future referrals, right? Not only will you connect with them like before the intensive actually happens, but you'll also connect with them after the intensive and share the amazing work that you've done, hear all the amazing things that they say about the work that you guys have done and how their client is reaping the rewards, right? And then you just continue that relationship, which goes back to my referral speech about psychiatrists previously. So, making sure you're getting that, those releases. And during the 90-minute intensive, you're also going to present the workbook to them, which again, I've talked about in many other episodes. But why is the workbook so important for a 5K experience? One, it saves time, and the client will sense that. You come across as super competent and prepared. They're like, oh, wow, she already has something for me to like start working on between now and when we do like get into the full day. It makes them feel more, they buy into the experience more. They feel more prepared. They're more ready to show up. It expedites like the movement towards processing. I think it even expedites processing itself because they're already connecting some dots. It helps the client feel like this is not the same as like a normal therapy experience. This is different, which we want them to feel. We want this to feel different, right? It's an opportunity for you to show them how you kind of get them right away and start building that attachment, which of course is only going to lead to better outcomes. And in other episodes in which I've talked about the workbook, I talk about tailoring the workbook to the presenting issue, right? So that's an opportunity for you to show, like, I get you, like how you tailor the workbook before you send it to them after the intake, right? So that's kind of the 90-minute intake and the workbook. You're really priming them. You're making them feel like you are really committed to creating an experience that's tailored to their needs, right? That they're not just another client on the list that you're like, oh, wait, okay, it's 3:00. I guess it's time for Mary or whoever, right? This is going to feel different to them. They need to feel special and important. That's part of what they're paying for, right? So during the intensive itself, what are some important things that really elevate this experience? Having a ton of clinical skills that you can move between really fluidly and effectively. This is something I focus on a lot in my group program. Out of the 6 modules, the 5th and 6th module are all about the clinical tools that I use in intensives, and I teach them to you. I teach them to you through the video lessons that accompany the modules, through the workbook exercises, through the scripts that I give you for each individual clinical tool I teach you. I give you like here's how you do this, quick and dirty. Let's like distill, I know the neuroscience is fascinating, but you don't need to attend a 6-hour training on this. Here's what you need to know. And then when we have the 2-hour group calls every other week, I can answer all the questions that you have so you feel competent as you use these different protocols, right? So you want to be able to move quickly between, RTEP, which again, if you've listened to the podcast, that's how I structure intensives, and like any other protocols or interventions or interweaves that you need to bring in. And you want to feel super competent and prepared to do that and fluid. That's again going to make them feel like, oh, this person really gets me. This person knows when I need something a little bit different. Like that's huge, right? Excellent treatment planning. Again, the last episode 62, is all about how do you treatment plan for an intensive, but you really want to be very, very clear with them about what your treatment plan is. It should be a collaborative process. Again, that's going to make them feel like she totally gets me. We're ready to make this time really count. I'm so excited to like move ahead and really do this, right? Deep attunement. That is so important. Okay. So continuing to stay grounded in yourself. 5 hours is a long time to sit with someone. That's why it's so important to not overbook yourself if you offer intensives. I hear a lot about people being like, well, I have a 3-hour intensive in the morning and then 4 clients in the afternoon. And I'm like, what the hell? Or the other way around, which is even worse, right? They've seen 3 clients in the morning and then they're doing 3 hours with one person in the afternoon. How are you giving the best version of you to that intensive? So again, everyone's different. Everyone does things differently. But I think one of the things people are paying for $5,000 is your deep, connected, undivided presence. And that means clearing your schedule, taking care of yourself so you have energy to show up in that way. And if you're one of those therapists who's trying to fit in intensives while not changing your weekly schedule at all, let me tell you, that's just another recipe for burnout. Maybe you came to intensives because you were trying to reduce burnout. This is not going to help. Just adding them on without changing anything else. I've seen this many times with therapists. You get yourself into a worse situation. And one of the things we really talk about in the group is like, how do you prevent that from happening? And we're very intentional about like looking at your schedule as it is now, creating a plan for you for the next several months, working backwards to be like, how do you get you from where you are to that practice you desire? And I don't really think you can do it in kind of a half-assed way. I think having a plan is so helpful. And I say this as someone who did it in a half-assed way and had to do a lot of backpedaling and figuring out. And, so don't do that. Don't make the same mistake that I did. There are ways to do this with intention without harming, like everyone. We're always so worried about harming clients. Like, look, I understand how ethical you all are and how much you care about that. But there are ways to do this ethically, to do it without harming clients, but like, let me help you in that process and hold your feet to the fire to make sure you do it. Anyways, that's about that. Something else that's so important is providing that retreat-like experience. And part of that is making the client know that you're the only person that they're seeing. They are the only person you're seeing the whole day, right? Your day is devoted to them. That is one thing. Creating a really serene environment in your office is super important. Creating a comfortable environment, blankets, pillows, a nice couch, calming music, a scented candle, whatever you feel comfortable with, or candles that aren't scented because, scents can bother some people. Asking clients before they come in, what are some things that would be soothing for them? Natural light, plants. Like, I think creating a serene space is so important, which is another reason why you got to charge like a substantial amount of money, because that shit ain't free, right? An office is not free. Natural light is not free. Good parking and outdoor space is not free, right? You might want to take your client outside for some grounding work. You might want to have a space that's big enough to do some movement, some yoga, some, whatever during the intensive. That all costs money. That's part of what they're paying for. You can do virtual therapy from your basement, unfinished basement, forever if you want. That is not something someone's going to pay $5,000 for, I don't think. Or they could, but I wouldn't feel great about that personally. Another thing that's so important is that you prepare super well for the intensive, right? Like, you have done your background work. You have talked to their other providers. You have read over their workbook and taken notes and really thought about how to craft this intensive for them. You want them to feel like you get them already. You understand their pain. You have a sense of what they need to work on. Continuing to stay really focused and streamlined on the treatment plan during the intensive, that can be hard to do. Sometimes we're like, let's just follow this where it goes. They are there for a reason, okay? It is your responsibility to keep some sort of structure to the intensive, which is, again, something that I teach you in my group. But I think it's part of the kind of 5K plus experience that you offer, is you're promising big results and you're setting up a structure that creates the likelihood of those big results. None of us can promise miracles, right? But I have found that if you stick to the structure that I teach, you will see transformation in clients. And we all know one of the best referral sources for you is previous clients. If you have done amazing work with previous clients in an intensive and they see the value of it, they're going to tell other people. So it is so worth your while and your energy to create that experience, okay? You don't want to be yawning in the middle of their intensive because you had 3 clients before they walked in the door, or because you haven't been taking care of yourself and haven't gotten enough sleep and you're exhausted, or you're sick, but you're still coming in anyway because you need the money, right? Like, all of these reasons to take care of ourselves so that we can show up as the best possible therapist we can be and give them that value that they're paying for, right? I also feel like that in the workbook that I give as part of my packages that you will get if you work with me, if you're in the group program. Not only does it have stuff to help them prepare for the session, but there are some pages about things to do in between sessions, because my structure is a 15-hour, 5-hour days structure. So even if there's not even a day between, you still want them to reflect a little bit. Like, did they have some dreams or things that came up? Like, take a few notes, and you want to make sure you talk to them about that at the beginning of the next day. It should not feel like work that they've done for nothing. Like, we all hated doing homework and coming in and the teacher doesn't even collect it, right? You need to be taking everything they're giving to you and honoring it. We've all had therapists too who don't ask about, like, did you do the CBT homework I assigned you? And you're like, okay, she didn't ask about it, or they didn't ask about it. Why am I doing this, right? Don't be that therapist. If you give them a workbook that has in between stuff, and there's so much value, you learn a lot about the work that's already happened if you go and make sure you review those exercises, the homework. I didn't put it in there for no reason. Okay. But again, I think this also conveys to the client that this is a different kind of experience. Like, there's work to be done between the sessions. You are going to check up on that. You're not just going to be like, wait, who are you? What did I ask you to do? So important. They need to feel like it's worthwhile and that you have it there for a reason. Something else that's super important is making sure that you connect with them after the intensive. The workbook kind of gives you a structure for that, like to kind of check back within a month. And in the workbook talks about, like, you have the client check in with how they're feeling after a week, after 2 weeks, after a month. So you have some data to ask them about. Like, sometimes I'll have them send me that page prior to connecting, after. Like, I always at least follow up with email or with a phone call. And I always ask the client what they'd prefer. I'm fine with any of them. A Zoom call, like, a video call if they want that. And so you make sure you're getting that data about, like, how are they doing? What's worked well? Like, this is incredible marketing material for you anyway. Like, if they have good results, like, you want to be talking to other people about that. And it just improves your practice to know this. And you want to make sure you're connecting with those providers that you already made a connection with and being like, hey, Blair was here when we before we started the intensive, and now they're here. Isn't that amazing? And the psychiatrist is like, whoa, holy shit, this therapist is making my job so much easier. I will send them people, right? So all of those things are what create an intensive that is worth $5,000. It's not just a number you slap on your website and you just kind of do whatever. That's not going to get the people continuing to come back. Okay. Creating an experience where they feel so valued and seen and important, and they have transformational change. That is what will keep people coming back, or telling other people about you, and maybe even coming back. But like, that's what's going to make the difference and make people feel like, oh yeah, this is absolutely worth it. When they see the ripple effects, the way that their life, their relationships, their parenting, their work, whatever has changed, they're not going to forget that. Okay. And they're going to be like, yeah, that was absolutely worth the money. So I just really encourage you to think deeply about, how am I creating an experience that I can charge this amount of money for? Because that's going to give you that confidence to do it. You're going to be like, of course I do this. And also it takes a lot out of you to do all of this. So you're going to want to charge that amount of money, right? And if you feel like you need support in this, please consider signing up for my group program. You're going to learn all of this and more. And I don't want to make guarantees, just like I would never guarantee something for a client intensive. But if you do the work in this 12-week group, you will book a 5K intensive. You will. No problem. Absolutely, you will do it. And you're going to have to do the work. So, just like studying for a test, you're not going to just show up and get an A if you haven't even looked at the book. So I will hold your feet to the fire to make sure you do that work. I'll put my little PhD professor hat on. But if you do the work, the results will pay off. I promise. It's going to get uncomfortable. You're going to have to push your boundaries, but of course you're going to have to achieve something great, right? If it was easy to get people to do intensives, everybody would do it. I can't tell you how many therapists have said to me, oh, I'm trying to get my intensive program off the ground, but nobody's booking it. Well, usually after I talk to them for a little bit, I can figure out why. And it's some of the things I've talked about today, right? So, I feel like I'm talking a mile a minute, but this is something I feel passionate about, as usual. Me, I love to talk. So anyway, today I talked about behind the scenes of a 5K intensive. How do you get a 5K intensive booked and then offer a 5K experience, right? So I hope this was useful to you. Please reach out to me at Future Template Parent on Instagram. If you have any questions about the group, please check out my website, www.futuretemplateparent.com/12-week group. We'll tell you all about the group. Please make sure you rate and review and subscribe to the podcast to help other people find it. I've had a lot of new listeners recently, which is super exciting. Thank you as always for tuning in, and I will absolutely talk to you soon or next week. Take care, everyone. Talk to you then.